Hey, how's it going, everyone? Dylan's Hobbies here. Today, we're going to talk about a micro brand that I recently discovered. I don't know why it took me so long to discover this brand. It's called RZE. I'm not sure if that's exactly how they intended us to pronounce it, if it's just like the letters, but I'm just going to call it RZE. In this case, I'm obviously not sponsored, super small YouTube channel. So anything I review is just straight out of my collection. So I did have to, buy this watch, and it is a part of my daily rotation. So you're gonna get only like the most honest opinions. And yeah, let's get into it. So today we will be talking about the RZE Ascentus. It's a full titanium watch. It's a GMT, and pretty much RZE is a micro brand that is based in Singapore and Malaysia. I don't think the watches are actually made there, but either way, it doesn't really matter to me because these are solid watches, and to me, where it's made doesn't actually matter at all. I kind of hate the whole idea that, oh yeah, just because your watch is made in Germany or your watch is made in Switzerland, that's the only way to have a good watch. It's just not true, right? At the end of the day, what comes down to it is the watch itself, which is why I'm a big fan of Grand Seiko. If you've been watching me at all, you know that I'm a Grand Seiko fanboy. So let's start off with the dimensions, just hard facts. 40 millimeters in case width, diameter, 13 millimeters case thickness, and 46 millimeters lug to lug. So it only weighs about 90 to 110 grams depending on how you sized the bracelet. So the good thing is that even though it's a 40 millimeter case diameter, which I guess is a Goldilocks zone for most people, but for people with smaller wrists, sometimes you still want a sports watch or even just any watch to be less than 40 millimeters. The great thing about this is that right here, that lug to lug is actually a lot smaller than a 40 millimeter watch would usually have. At 46 millimeters, this becomes a super wearable watch. It's closer to like a 37, 38 millimeter watch. I honestly think that we should start adopting a system where we do, the surface area of a watch. So from here multiplied by this, maybe. I think that's the best way to compare watches, and that way, you can start comparing square and circular watches a bit better. Either way, though, the dimensions are great. It'll fit many smaller wrists. I have a 6.5 inch wrist, so let me just take this off. Size to my wrist, I think it fits pretty perfectly. No complaints there. I mean, moving on with some of the specs, actually, they do claim that this is one of the most comfortable bracelets in the world. I have yet to actually experience a more comfortable bracelet. I know people give Grand Seiko a lot of flack, but even like compared to Tudor or Rolex, I think that this is probably one of the most comfortable bracelets. My only complaint is that if they're going to make that claim, it would be nice to have on-the-fly adjustments, just so that I don't have to wear it more loose, so that when my wrist swells, it doesn't, clamp it too hard. Pretty simple clasp there with the lock over mechanism. You can see plenty of micro adjusts. And it is kind of more similar to like a Jubilee system here. And you look at that flexibility. Like, no wonder it's so comfortable. It does have more similar to a Jubilee style bracelet, so in that case, you know, half links aren't really necessary considering how small each link is. So you're gonna guarantee almost to get a good fit out of this. That being said, I still wish there was on the fly adjustment. And then you can see there's a screw down or a screw mechanism to adjust the bracelet. Oh, another thing about the bracelet is that I did hear people having complaints that the bracelet does snag hair. I don't have arm hair much actually, so you know, luckily I haven't personally experienced it, but yeah. Another thing about the bracelet is that maybe it's due to the way that it's so flexible. If you get it, let's see if I can get it to get. Nope. I'll put a clip in there. But essentially, if you get it in a certain way, it'll actually get folded over so that, oh, there we go. It'll get folded over so that it pretty much gets stuck and you aren't able to, yeah, you have to play around with it a lot to get it back to normal. And that's actually really annoying. I think if you're making claims about how comfortable your bracelet is, I think you should fix that. That shouldn't ever happen on a watch, I feel like. So the next specs I would like to actually go over is some of the claims that they make. Well, they have a bead blasted grade 2 titanium with ultra hex coating. Claims to have 1200 Vickers on the Vickers scale. Essentially, the coating on there makes this watch a lot more scratch resistant. People like to say that, you know, titanium is a little bit of a softer metal, so it's definitely easier to scratch. However, with this coating, it makes it a lot harder to scratch. It also claims to have a 200-meter water resistance, and honestly, that's more than enough. Even for a dive watch, I feel like that's enough. I believe Tudor only goes up to 200 meters as well. The Tudor Black Bay 58, of course. So the exciting part for me is also just the fact that this uses the Seiko GMT movement. So it's not a traveler's GMT, as people like to call it. It's more of an office GMT. I hate the term true and false, or true GMT and, you know, not true GMT, or whatever you want to call it. I think both are GMTs, right? They track a different time zone, and because it is a rotatable bezel, you can track 3 different time zones. Speaking about the bezel, you can hear it. Not the best sounding bezel. It's because of the fact that it's a titanium bezel, and while I appreciate the fact that they kept everything titanium, this is a really stiff bezel and it really doesn't sound great. So, you know, I almost never use this bezel, even for like timing things. I just can't find myself wanting to use it because of the sound and the way it feels. Even the grip is I mean, they put knurlings on here, but it's a bit too stiff for the knurlings to actually make life that much easier. Also, if you take a look, drilled lugs, so that's great, easier for strap changes. It does come with another strap, which I love. It's a parachute strap. Makes it a lot more custom for your wrist size. So it's probably, in terms of comfort, this watch is one of the most comfortable watches you'll ever wear. The lightness of the watch, the bracelet is super comfortable, and the fact that it includes an extra parachute strap, which is also comfort. It also comes with a pouch, a travel pouch. They included these Velcro ultra hex patches. I mean, I don't have anything to do with them, so I just stick it on there. I hate the sound of Velcro. It's actually a pretty nice pouch, I'm not gonna lie. It's a welcome addition for sure. And it also comes with, you know, a sizing adjustment tool, which it worked for a bit, and then for some reason I'm having a bit of issues with using it after sizing it. The screw essentially just comes loose, and I'm unable to keep using it. Every time I use it, the screw head itself comes loose, so kind of weird there. They also claim to use sapphire crystal with inner side super AR. I do agree with a lot of their claims. Actually, I'm pretty impressed with most of their claims. It is probably one of the most anti-reflective crystals I've seen. I mean, you're seeing a little bit of reflection because of how heavy the lighting I'm using is, but if you just look straight down, it looks like you can just reach into the crystal itself, like it's not there. It's that good. Another thing I love about this watch is that it's a fully loomed dial, and everything is loomed from all these numbers, and they use different loom for everything, and this thing glows like a flashlight. It is definitely generously loomed. Sometimes you can start seeing the white indices already start to turn green in the sunlight because of it. I mean, it works out well just because the dial itself is white, so it's still providing that contrast. Now, if that does bother you, if you don't like having that colorful, cartoony kind of look to your watch, this watch might not be for you. But I love the fact that it looks actually kind of cartoony. Reminds me of the way that white or silver dial Tudor Black Bay 36 looks. It looks kind of cartoony. I'm not going to lie, but I actually love that look. It's its own kind of set look. The great thing about this also is they do use different loom colors, which makes it pretty cool. So yes, this watch glows in the dark. Funny way to put it. The only thing I do wish is that they use a different color for the GMT hand in terms of the loom, just because it does make it not stand out as much, the fact that it uses the same colors. But that's fine, just a minor complaint. So back to talking about the Seiko movement. The most exciting thing about that was the fact that microbands, people were wondering what microbands were going to do with that movement, and this is RZE's answer to that. It's a beautiful watch. I at first kind of saw this as like an Explorer 2 alternative, but with a fully loomed dial, so that's not even really a setback to me, because I've always wanted to try a fully loomed dial. But then I realized, if I looked a little closer, that hand is not actually an orange hand. It is kind of like their signature medallion hand, kind of like a yellow orangey in between color. Very nice. Since it is a fully loomed dial, they do not use any texturing. It's just a nice matte glossy finish. Actually, it's a little more glossy than I thought looking at it this close, but it's essentially just no texture involved, which is fine. I think it would have been a bit busy with all the texture. I think it's pretty cool. Looking at the K-shape too, with the design that it's pretty sharply angled on both sides. In general, it makes it look a lot more sporty, and I really do like the look. One thing I really liked about the fact that it's completely bead blasted is I've always wanted to see like a bead blasted watch, considering that makes it a lot more tool-like. Any knife collectors out there, they know that there's bead blasted knives, and I always wondered why there wasn't that many bead blasted watches. And I think this is an amazing use of it. In terms of any scratches, I've been wearing this as a daily wear. I didn't really care. I bump into things all the time. I don't really see any scratches. The only thing is maybe on the underside of this watch. There is scratches on the back here. I'm not very careful with my watches, or at least with watches like these. There's definitely a good amount of scratching there. I wonder if they just don't use the ultra hex coating as much on this end of it, or if it's because since it's kind of against itself, maybe that's what's causing the scratching. Not the biggest deal, because at least it's just the underside. So all it means with the office GMT is that instead of you being able to independently set the hour hand, you're only able to independently set the GMT hand, which is fine. It doesn't really change too much for me. You could always technically, when you go travel, just change the GMT hand and read the GMT hand. It's that simple. It's really not that difficult. And in that way, then your regular handset is tracking your home time if that's what you want. Yes, you could also just reset everything and it'll be fine. I mean, that's a little more annoying, but if you're using it for travel, just set the GMT hand. So I'll show you guys. So if you unscrew it to the first position, it pops out pretty nicely. And that's when you're winding. Winding is actually very, very smooth. No complaints there. Pop it out to the first position, doesn't hack. You can change the date that way, which I don't. Yep. So you change the date that way from winding one direction. Let me just get it back because I actually have it set to the current date. And then the other way changes the GMT hand. So if you're looking for a GMT or a sports watch, a watch that you can pretty much take on all your travels, not having to worry about it, this is a really good watch for you. It's pretty much what I think is good for. It's $549, including tax USD. I think you're gonna find that it's really hard to find a GMT at that price point that's as good as this watch. So I highly recommend it. I see it staying in my collection for a long time until I decide to pretty much upgrade a GMT if I want to. It's hard to say. I do really love the fact that it's a fully loomed dial. All that said, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I hope you guys have a good day.